All right, so good morning and welcome to the Haventree Famliy Parent Podcast, where we get a minute before the kids wake up to talk about something we think is important to us and to you.
Today's special guest is Miko. He's resting right now, but Miko is our old man Shih Tzu. Say hi, guys. He doesn't have very many teeth, so he has a real goofy face.
Yeah, his tongue is always out.
He is a very sweet boy. He's very affectionate.
And getting
we
chunky.
Adore him, thankfully, because he was very skinny when we got him. So we love him very much. Miko is joining us today while we talk about how we juggle multiple kids and getting schoolwork done. This is a topic that a lot of people are talking about right now, having to do school at home. And I've seen conversations about it online, and definitely has been happening with a lot of my friend groups. So since we have 5 of our own, we figured it would be a topic that we could share our opinions on what we're doing.
Yeah. So let's get started. And since it's going to be mostly about multiple kids and dealing with all their homeschool stuff or schooling at home, I guess that's where you come into play. And you will be talking about everything today. So I will sit back.
You better have some important things to chime in on too.
Well,
We'll see. So I think that the number one most important thing as far as balancing multiple kids is to know your kids. That's really what is going to make the biggest difference when you're trying to juggle and balance multiples and figure out how to meet the needs of each one while actually getting them to learn something, because I think that that's where the struggle comes in a lot of the time. And I think it's also important to remember that you may know your kid, you may know their personality, you may understand them, but the way that they learn can sometimes be very different from the kid that they are and the personality that they are. And I think a really good example of this is Josiah. Josiah is a kid that I really struggled with. From birth, I mean, he just was kind of a holy terror. He screamed all the time. He was never happy. He was never satisfied. He was a really, really difficult kid for like the first 3 years of his life. He really made me reconsider even whether or not we wanted to have any more kids, because he was just so bad. And there were so many tears shed by me over just not knowing how to help him or meet his needs. But when we decided to do school with him, I really kind of went back and forth, because I thought, I don't know if I could do this. Like, am I just asking for more trouble? And then like the first week that we started school, he became like my best friend.
oh yeah. Like, okay, so he was like, what, 4.5,
Yeah.
something, like we started, because
Yeah, it
his
was like a
birthday was in
pre-
April, so he started earlier or whatever.
Yeah.
With pre-K stuff. And like I came home that night, like she was like, we're gonna start school today, we're gonna get these lessons, and I'm gonna just see how it goes. And she was like, obviously like afraid of like it's not gonna go well, because so far our relationship is garbage, or not the greatest mother-son relationship.
It's hard.
And
it's a strained relationship.
Usually at the dinner table, I sat between whoever kid wanted to sit with me. So I'd usually be between both Adria and Saya.
But you were always by Saya.
Yeah, I was always by Saya. And so like that night, like first day of school, and he's like, I'm sitting by mom tonight. And I was like, well, I guess school went well. And I had already had the report from her, from Katie, that was like, we did really good today. I was really impressed with like how much you wanted to focus and just like get that attention that wasn't there, I don't know, between your relationship. So, but I think it was because it was activating his little needed brain of like, I want to learn and I like to figure out the next thing. And now like he's doing the Legos by himself, like he's like, I don't need your help, but I want you to sit here.
And the reality is for Saya, and we'll talk more about Saya at a different time, but the reality is for Saya, for one thing, he and I are way too much alike. We both are quite certain that we're correct about everything all the time, and we both get really angry when things don't go the way that we think that they're supposed to. And so in so many things, those personality traits clash between him and I.
Well, yeah, because in school setting, like that's where things come into play. And
but
so it's
we both love to learn. We both have this curiosity that cannot be quenched. We love to learn something new. We love gaining independence. We love having confidence in what we know. And so when he and I started school, it gave us something to really bond over and enjoy together. So I say that to say, and it's built a bridge since for our relationship, and it's kind of, you know, that thing that I searched for and prayed for the first 3 years of his life, because I just didn't know how to connect to him or reach him.
Right. Well, and it's not like there's moments like when they're 2 and 3 where you're trying to teach them the alphabet or how to do little extra skill milestone stuff, but like schooling is just different the way it's set up, and then you're mentally prepared for yourself for. So.
And then, you know, the complete opposite, Adri is the most responsible, sweet, compassionate, tender-hearted kid. She is like my little right-hand lady, as, you know, the firstborn daughter is. It tends to be. You know, she always sort of knows what's going on. She's, you know, trying to boss you and tell you what you shouldn't be doing or what I would want you to do or whatever, which we're working on. But I just want to punch her in the head or throw her out a window every day that we do school, because when it comes to academic stuff, she and I are complete opposites. But it's also why we get along in daily stuff, is because she sort of is complementary to my personality, and so she can be like a friend in her personality and the way that we interact. But when it comes to school stuff, our brains are on totally different wavelengths. And so I think that it's really important, especially for those that are doing school at home, not by choice, right? Kind of under duress or because of crisis, that you remember that your kid, even if it's a kid that you really get along with, or that outside of school things really works well for you or does what you ask or whatever, learning is sort of a different brain task, you know, especially when it comes to academic stuff. So I think it's really important to take the time to learn how your kid learns, because that's something that if you've never done it before is really important to figure out if you're trying to teach them and do school with them, especially if they're little, because they can't tell you that. And of course that comes to things like, how do they learn best? Are they an auditory learner? Are they a visual learner? Are they a kinesthetic learner? But it also just comes down to their personality. And I think sometimes those things clash, and I think that's okay. But I think that it comes as a surprise to parents sometimes, because it sort of is a different personality or different kid sometimes than the person that you know when you're playing a board game together or when you're throwing a ball together or whatever else it is that you're doing. So I think it's really, you know, it's a really necessary step to figure that out. I think in addition to learning and knowing your kid, something else that's good to figure out is what time is their brain most active, turned on, and ready to learn. Adri is so much more engaged in the evening and afternoon. First thing in the morning, she is so not ready to learn. It's like pulling teeth. It takes twice as long. I mean, it's a pain. On the other hand, when we get caught up in the day or we have other stuff going on and I try to do school past like dinner time with Josiah, you may as well forget it. I mean, we both are crying by the time we're 10 minutes in, because he, very much like me, after dinner time, I'm done. My brain is off. It's time to just like veg, go to bed. But Josiah and I are also both very much early risers. So I think that it's something that is an important thing to learn about your kids. But it also may work to your advantage, because if you have one kid that really works well for you first thing in the morning, and you have a kid that works well for you at night, find some time to do it. There's no rule when you're doing school at home that says you can't do school at nighttime. Like if that works better for your kid, do it. That's way better in the long run for your sanity to do school when they're most likely to learn, and it's not going to take as long.
Right. And I would say, I see the benefit of that, but I also, as coming home from the evenings from work and expecting those things to be done, like until now when my schedule has gotten entirely, thrown into the wind, it was a little frustrating to still see that they had work to do until 8 o'clock bedtime. And that was never fun for me because I was like, they should have got it done today. And I know there's the struggle of there's so many other things going on and just house maintenance and whatever. But it was always like, I wanted to go outside and have a nice night and enjoy riding bikes and doing little kid stuff that's, not school focused. But not that they weren't able to do that during the day when I wasn't here. I just couldn't be a part of that. And so that was, I prioritized school, but I also prioritized like my time with them too. So that was always like, darn it, I missed out on a fun day because they didn't get their work done early.
Well, I think certainly there's a balance to that too.
Yeah.
I think one thing.
Well, now that my schedule's offset, it's whatever.
Yeah. I mean, currently, of course, if you're doing school at home because of quarantine, then probably your schedule's all kinds of messed up. And so it sort of is a weird time anyway. If you're talking more about like how to homeschool, I think that's kind of a different scenario. But what I would say either way, sort of to support that or to, I don't know, kind of address that, I guess, to some extent, is think about the things that are challenging for your child, and make sure that you prioritize those specifically for the time of day that your kid is most likely to be engaged. So I know that if I wake Adri up, I have to roll her out of bed. That's not the time to do.
Not ready to go at
reading
until noon. Yeah.
Right. I never ever make Adri read before lunchtime. Ever. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. One is because I have to sit and do it with her, and before lunchtime, she just is prone to be grumpy and whine, and so it's just not worth a fight because she doesn't like to read and reading.
Why am I
hard
awake?
For her.
The sun's not even halfway up.
Right. So so I can ask her to do other things that are easier tasks, but I save the stuff that's a challenge for her and the stuff that I have to be very engaged for the time that she's most ready and prepared. And you can kind of fudge that time a little bit as you need. I know she's better in the afternoon, evening time. So if I have to do stuff with her right before dinner, then that still is a more functional time for her brain activity than first thing in the morning. So there's kind of some wiggle room you have with that. And again, like I said, it really depends on the day. Like if we've been out at appointments all day, then we really need to have that evening time to work. But in that situation, it might be something where it's better to have Sai do catch up the next day because he's not going to work that evening. Mm-hmm. And that really kind of takes us into another point, which is in this life right now, perfection is your enemy. Trying to do everything just right, especially when you have a bunch of littles, is going to be hard. And I think that teachers understand that as well. That, I would say most of Jamie's stuff right now, I'm turning in a day late so that I can look over it because they're only uploading 1 day's worth of stuff at a time. And so I have that morning once they've posted it to be able to look at and review it. And that's not enough time for me to sort of plan out my day with her.
Because our day's already been planned 3 or 4 days in advance. Because with Kenzie's stuff, we have to do that. It's there's no choice for us to wait for the day of.
Yeah. So, so pretty much all of Jay's stuff right now is the next day, which obviously
we'll see where it fits. Okay, here you go.
Yeah. Obviously, if you have, a high school student or even an older elementary school student, you may not be able to do that, and that may not be as appropriate. But I think as a child gets older, they're also able to do a lot more independently anyway. So I think there's kind of a trade-off that comes with that, as far as flexibility and grace that teachers typically are extending during this time, and what your child's abilities are.
Or you think that they're good at doing their own work, and then you try to work with them, and then one of them gets away with doing 3 papers, and apparently that's the end of the day, and she can cross off the other part of her work because Mama lets her cross things off, and then somebody else gets in trouble for not getting all this kids' school stuff done, and I think you'll waste an entire second day doing the same things apparently they should have been doing the first time. So team up with your co-parent teachers and make sure that the lessons are getting accomplished the way they're supposed to be, and things that get crossed off are actually the right thing, and you don't end up with a whole paper and a half. Plus, the reverse side, double check both sides. So if your dad trying to fill in, help your wife out, please make sure you communicate everything that was accomplished and not just, oh yeah, she did 3 papers. Well, where's the other 6? So make sure you
in case you haven't figured out,
get the cliff notes.
He speaks from experience here with this. Yeah.
Might have messed up last week.
It's all right. So I think another thing that's really important as far as like knowing your kids is to consider their attention span. And this really kind of goes right into all the other things that we've sort of said about this. But, science says that your child basically has their age multiplied by 2 in minutes. That's how long they have to really pay attention. So if you have a 6-year-old, they have about 12 minutes, maybe plus 5, of dedicated attention. That's how long you have. If you are teaching a new concept for 30 minutes, an hour, you've wasted 45 minutes. Like, that is how long their brain is able to attend. Period. Amen. End of story.
Yeah, I mean, that's how my brain was working even into, high school. I was only 10 minutes and I was done with whatever it was. So.
Well, in high school, you were 16, so you should have like 32 minutes of attention.
No way.
But, and obviously that's for a neurotypical child. If you have a child that has attention deficit disorder or hyperactivity issues, as one of ours does, then, that time is shortened then even more. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind and not get upset about that, but use that to your advantage.
Right.
So if you have a 6-year-old and you have a 10-year-old, right? Spend 12 minutes, 12 to 15, teaching your 6-year-old a new task. And then have them work on their task, do the seat work, do some handwriting, do an activity, but they're not still being taught that new topic. And then go and work with your 10-year-old for 20 minutes to 25-ish minutes. And then let them have some time to use that task or take a break or read a book or color a picture.
Right.
And while they're taking their brain break, you go back and you work with your 6-year-old again, right? So alternating sort of that teaching time. You don't have to say school is from 9 to 12. We will both children will get everything done during that time. And if that doesn't happen, like, we have failed today.
Right, because one of them is going to have a new lesson that they're going to have to learn. And you're going to have to spend extra time or whatever minutes with them to get the concept, because it's going to be something new and hard and challenging. And they're not going to get it right away. Yeah. And you're going to have to wait for that 12-minute window and try to, plug that in. And that's why we create the separate areas and, take the precaution of you work over there, you work over here with each kid. So that way they're separated, but working, hopefully. Yeah.
Well, and then too, in that, like Adri's school, because she's a 2nd grader, her school takes much longer than the kindergartner and the 1st grader, right? So Adri starts working at the same time as Josiah, but Josiah's done with his beginning teaching and seat work an hour to an hour and a half in, so he's learned. Usually there's like 2 actual like intense learning things that happen during that time period, as well as 2 or 3 activity pages and different, like, usually there's like some sort of kinesthetic motor activity in that time. And then after that hour to hour and a half is done, he takes a break. Go downstairs and play. If it's a nice day, go outside, go play with the baby, draw, whatever it is that you want to do. During school time, we are not allowed to do TV unless it's like for a lesson. Right. So no other screen time is allowed, and they know that.
I think one of the other points was for Kenzie and for the baby, they have their own special toy time for during school only. So that way they can, have a special thing.
Yeah. So, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, I do. It
happens. So, so then Saya, because he's younger, he needs like a more in-depth, in addition to during that hour and a half, he kind of has some, brain breaks in that time. But then after that time period, he is still young. And so to sit, even if he's sitting and getting up, even if he's doing different activities during that time, he still needs a total break. Like he needs to be able to get up and wiggle. I mean, it's like, you know, kindergartners have, hopefully still, I don't know, I guess anymore what they do in school, but like kindergartners used to have multiple recesses during the day because they couldn't sit or, you know, be in a classroom all day, and they just needed like wild wiggle time. And so Saya needs that wild wiggle time in between his learning times. Whereas Adri's able to, she doesn't sit for several hours at a time, but she's able to continue working on school for at least 2.5 hours typically. She gets up and does like jumping jacks or stretches or different things in between subjects and things like that. But, you know, so I think providing those breaks, and then Sai does more a little bit later, and Adri does reading after lunch. But providing those breaks, I think, is really important too.
Yeah.
So I think the last thing is, if you're not able to put your kids in different areas of the house, something else that we've learned that is really helpful is to invest in some good headphones for each kid and plug them into like elevator music, classical music, something that's low, but it can kind of block out the noise. We've also used like the science trifold boards before to kind of block out the visual distraction. But I think minimizing distractions is probably our final tip as far as like trying to manage getting multiple young kids' school done at home at the same time, and trying to juggle and balance that all in a way that doesn't end in tears every day. Because definitely we've had some school days like that, let's be honest. Yeah, and that's why, like I said earlier, like I didn't like coming home to like the end of a long day and everybody's just like tired and doesn't want to do anything other than stuff their face with some pizza and chips or something and go to bed. Like, I mean, I'm happy to do that, but I want you to be happy when I come home and, you know that the day went well, but it's hard and it's not going that great because, you know, big new things to learn. So that makes it challenging. Well, I think that is all the time that we have for today. The kids should be waking up soon. I hear them. Please don't forget to share your ideas and thoughts as far as things that you've done, whether those are the same as things that we've done or whether you have other ideas. We would love to hear them in the comments below. Until the next adventure. Bye. Bye.